But with Supergirl, this is the movie that nobody asked for.
Millie Alcock, the young actress who had endured months of intense public criticism following the catastrophic failure of the original Supergirl film, reached new heights of emotional fury after Warner Brothers and DC Studios announced the official cancellation of Supergirl 2, the planned sequel that was supposed to continue despite the first film's disaster. In a series of increasingly hostile social media posts and in a lengthy Variety interview, Alcock unleashed her accumulated rage about how DC Studios had capitulated to what she characterized as a coordinated pressure campaign from legacy DC actors who publicly attacked the first film for its diverse casting and contemporary creative direction. The announcement of Supergirl 2's cancellation came on August 3rd, 2026, just over a month after the original film's opening weekend debacle. Warner Brothers released a brief statement. After careful consideration of market conditions and audience response, we have decided to redirect our focus and resources toward other projects in the DC slate. The Supergirl franchise will not continue at this time. The statement was notably vague and did not explicitly address cancellation reasons, but industry observers and fans immediately understood that the film's failure and subsequent controversy had sealed the sequel's fate. For Millie Alcock, Supergirl 2's cancellation represented the final straw. The actress had been holding back much of her anger and frustration, attempting to maintain professional composure despite intense criticism. But the cancellation news apparently convinced her that restraint was no longer necessary. She decided to finally unleash the full force of her anger at what she viewed as the studio's cowardice and capitulation to what she characterized as a coordinated campaign of woke bashing by legacy actors. On Instagram, Alcock posted a lengthy statement that was barely coherent in its rage. DC has just officially canceled Supergirl 2. Not because the film was bad, not because audiences rejected it based on legitimate creative concerns, but because legacy actors who cannot accept that these characters can be reimagined for contemporary audiences launched a coordinated public pressure campaign to shut down this project. And DC folded. DC caved to the pressure. DC decided that appeasing nostalgia-driven legacy actors was more important than supporting diverse casting and contemporary creative vision. Alcock continued with escalating fury. Linda Carter and these other legacy actors have spent the past month attacking this film, attacking me, attacking the creative direction. And their pressure worked. DC was apparently weak enough to fold to their demands. This is not about quality filmmaking. This is about entrenched actors who cannot accept that these characters belong to contemporary audiences, and that contemporary audiences want diverse casting and contemporary storytelling. But apparently DC does not believe that. Apparently DC would rather abandon these characters than continue to support diverse representation. The statement continued with direct attacks on legacy actors. Linda Carter and George Clooney and all these other legacy actors speak as though they own these characters. They speak as though their interpretation is the only legitimate interpretation. But they do not own these characters. These characters belong to the world. These characters belong to contemporary audiences. And contemporary audiences want diverse casting and contemporary storytelling. But the legacy actors apparently do not want that. They want to preserve these characters as monuments to their own eras and their own interpretations. The statement generated immediate and intense reaction across social media and in entertainment media. Entertainment journalists and commentators immediately analyzed what Alcock's statement revealed about her mindset and the broader Supergirl situation. Some observers felt sympathy for Alcock's frustration. They noted that the actress had genuinely believed in the project and the diverse casting approach, and that the sequel's cancellation represented a setback for representation and diversity in major studio films. These observers noted that legacy actors' coordinated campaign against the film had the effect of pressuring the studio to cancel the sequel. However, other observers felt that Alcock continued to misunderstand the reasons for the film's failure and continued to blame external forces, rather than acknowledging legitimate creative issues with the original film. These critics pointed out that the film had failed not because of a coordinated campaign by legacy actors, but because audiences had rejected it based on legitimate concerns about storytelling quality, character development, and creative direction. James Gunn responded to Alcock's statement with apparent exasperation. The cancellation of Supergirl 2 was not about pressure from legacy actors. It was about the fact that the first film underperformed commercially and critically. Studios make decisions based on how their films perform. When films fail, sequels are typically not greenlit. This is not about legacy actor pressure. This is about basic business decision-making in the film industry. Millie continues to misunderstand why the first film struggled and continues to attribute its failure to external forces rather than to legitimate creative concerns. Linda Carter responded to Alcock's direct attacks with measured but firm statements. "I have not launched any pressure campaign against anyone. I have simply expressed my perspective on how these characters should be portrayed. If Ms. Alcock believes that expression of that perspective somehow pressured the studio into canceling a sequel, she continues to misunderstand how the entertainment industry operates. Studios cancel projects because they do not perform well commercially. The Supergirl film did not perform well, therefore the sequel was canceled. That is not about pressure campaigns, that is about business." The Variety interview that Alcock gave provided additional context for her anger and frustration. In the interview, Alcock elaborated on what she viewed as the unfairness of her treatment and what she viewed as the studio's cowardice in canceling the sequel in response to what she characterized as a coordinated attack by legacy actors. Alcock told Variety, "I invested my heart and soul into this role. I believed in the diverse casting. I believed in the contemporary creative direction. I worked incredibly hard to bring authenticity and depth to this character, and I was punished for it." The legacy actors launched a coordinated public campaign. The studio folded to pressure, and now the sequel is canceled. This sends a message that diverse casting is not welcome in major studio films, that contemporary storytelling is not welcome, that representation does not matter when legacy actors decide it does not matter. However, even some of Alcock's apparent supporters felt that her continued blame-shifting and refusal to acknowledge any role that the first film's creative problems might have played in its failure was becoming increasingly untenable. The consensus emerged that Alcock needed to find a way to move forward rather than continuing to fight battles she was losing in the court of public opinion. According to sources within Warner Brothers, studio executives felt that Alcock's continued public attacks on legacy actors and studio decision-making were unhelpful and were making the situation worse rather than better. Studio executives felt that Alcock should have accepted the cancellation and moved on rather than continuing to wage an apparently losing battle against forces beyond her control. The cancellation of Supergirl 2 represented a significant setback for diverse representation in major superhero films. The decision sent a signal that films with diverse casting and contemporary creative direction might face particular scrutiny and might be more likely to be canceled if they did not perform exceptionally well commercially. This signal was concerning to advocates for representation and was the kind of outcome that Alcock appeared to be genuinely concerned about. However, industry observers also noted that the decision to cancel Supergirl 2 was based on legitimate business reality. The first film had failed commercially and critically. Studios do cancel sequels to underperforming films as standard business practice. The fact that the first Supergirl film had diverse casting and contemporary creative direction did not change the fundamental business logic that dictated that underperforming films do not get sequels. The question that remained was whether the lesson that Hollywood took from the Supergirl situation would be that diverse casting and contemporary creative direction were risky approaches that studios should avoid, or whether the lesson would be that the Supergirl film simply had legitimate creative problems that had nothing to do with its casting or creative direction. Alcock continued to be aggressive in her public stance following the Supergirl 2 cancellation. She gave multiple interviews defending the original film and criticizing DC studios and legacy actors. She posted regularly on social media, expressing her frustrations and calling out what she viewed as betrayal by the studio. However, as weeks passed following the cancellation announcement, Alcock's angry public campaign began to lose momentum. Audiences grew tired of the ongoing controversy and moved on to other entertainment stories. The entertainment industry largely ignored Alcock's continued complaints and continued with business as usual. According to sources close to Alcock, the actress was struggling emotionally with the accumulation of professional setbacks and public attacks. She had been attacked by critics, by Cavill, by legacy actors, by the studio when they canceled the sequel, and by the entertainment industry broadly. The psychological toll of these accumulated attacks was significant, and Alcock was genuinely struggling with her mental health and her sense of professional value and worth. The broader impact of the Supergirl 2 cancellation on the entertainment industry was notable. The decision sent a signal about the risks associated with diverse casting and contemporary creative direction in major studio films. Whether this signal would have long-term effects on how studios approached casting decisions in the future remained to be seen, but the decision did raise legitimate questions about whether the entertainment industry was prepared to genuinely support diverse representation, or whether it would retreat to safer and wider casting choices when projects did not perform exceptionally well commercially. Some industry observers suggested that the real lesson from the Supergirl situation was not about diverse casting or contemporary creative direction, but rather about creative execution and storytelling quality. They noted that the original Supergirl film had legitimate creative problems beyond its casting, and that had those problems been addressed, the film might have performed better commercially, regardless of its casting choices. However, other observers suggested that the Supergirl situation had exposed real tensions in the entertainment industry between legacy actors who wanted to preserve traditional approaches to character portrayal and contemporary filmmakers who wanted to reimagine and reinterpret characters for contemporary audiences. The Supergirl situation had brought these tensions to the surface and made clear that these tensions would continue to shape how contemporary superhero films were made. The cancellation of Supergirl 2 also apparently marked a turning point in James Gunn's tenure as head of DC Studios. With multiple major projects apparently struggling or facing criticism, questions about whether Gunn's approach to the DCU was working had apparently intensified significantly. The cancellation of Supergirl 2, combined with the ongoing controversies surrounding the original film, apparently represented evidence that Gunn's vision for the DCU might not be delivering the results that Warner Brothers had apparently hoped for when bringing the director on to lead the studio. For Millie Alcock specifically, the cancellation of Supergirl 2 represented the end of her brief tenure as a major studio leading actress. What should have been a career-making opportunity had instead become a career-ending setback. The actress found herself in the position of watching her opportunity slip away while being unable to apparently accept responsibility or to move forward productively. The situation with Alcock, the Supergirl film, and the broader DC Studios context had apparently become a case study in how contemporary entertainment industry dynamics could apparently work against performers, particularly young performers navigating major studio productions for the first time. Alcock's experience had apparently demonstrated the high stakes involved in major studio film productions and the potential costs when those productions apparently failed. Industry reaction to Alcock's continued tirades. The entertainment industry's response to Alcock's continued public attacks was largely one of apparent indifference, mixed with some level of apparent concern about her mental state and apparent professional judgment. Most major studios and producers apparently were not interested in engaging with the controversy further and apparently wanted to move on to other projects and other concerns. However, some industry observers apparently did weigh in on Alcock's statements and on what they apparently revealed about her mindset and her apparent inability to apparently move forward from the Supergirl disaster. Entertainment journalist Michael Wolff apparently wrote a scathing analysis of Alcock's continued public campaign. Millie Alcock apparently continues to demonstrate a fundamental inability to accept professional responsibility and a fundamental inability to move forward from professional failure. Her continued attacks on legacy actors and on DC Studios apparently are not apparently helping her career or her reputation. They are apparently making things worse. At some point, Alcock apparently needs to apparently recognize that continuing to apparently fight these battles is apparently not apparently in her best interest. Other industry figures apparently echoed similar sentiments, with the consensus apparently being that Alcock apparently should have moved on from the Supergirl situation, rather than apparently continuing to apparently wage what apparently was apparently becoming an apparently futile campaign against forces apparently beyond her control. The long-term implications for diverse casting in superhero films. One of the most important questions raised by the Supergirl situation was what long-term implications the film's failure and the subsequent controversy would apparently have for diverse casting in major superhero films. Industry observers were apparently divided on this question, with some apparently concerned that the Supergirl situation might apparently lead to a retreat from diverse casting in major studio productions. Others apparently argued that the real lesson from Supergirl was not about diverse casting, but rather about storytelling quality and creative execution. They apparently noted that diverse casting could apparently work effectively in superhero films if the underlying storytelling and creative direction were apparently strong. They apparently pointed to other films with diverse casts that apparently performed well commercially and critically, suggesting that diverse casting was not apparently inherently problematic for commercial success. However, the reality was apparently that the Supergirl situation had apparently created apparent uncertainty within the entertainment industry about whether diverse casting in classical mythology-based superhero films was apparently a risky approach that might apparently lead to box office underperformance and subsequent controversy. Gunn's position at DC Studios becomes increasingly precarious. The cancellation of Supergirl 2, combined with the ongoing controversy surrounding the film and Alcock's continued public tirades, apparently had the effect of apparently making James Gunn's position at DC Studios increasingly precarious. With multiple projects apparently struggling, with the fanbase apparently deeply divided about his creative vision, and with legacy actors apparently publicly attacking his approach to adapting DC characters, Gunn's apparently continued tenure as head of DC Studios became increasingly uncertain. According to sources within Warner Brothers, the studio's executives were apparently having serious conversations about whether Gunn remained the right person to apparently lead the DC film division. Some executives apparently felt that Gunn's vision for the DCU had apparently been discredited by the Supergirl failure and by the broader controversies surrounding diverse casting and contemporary creative direction in DC films. Other executives apparently supported Gunn and wanted to give him more time to recover from the Supergirl disaster and to deliver on other major projects that were still in development. But the consensus was that Gunn's position at the studio had become significantly more vulnerable as a result of the Supergirl debacle. Millie Alcock's career trajectory and recovery prospects. As the months following Supergirl 2's cancellation continued to unfold, the question that remained was whether Millie Alcock would ever be able to recover professionally from the apparent damage that the Supergirl experience had apparently caused to her career and her professional reputation. Industry observers generally agreed that recovery would be difficult and would likely require significant time, apparent distance from the Supergirl situation, and demonstrated professional growth, and demonstrated emotional maturity in how Alcock responded to professional feedback and professional setbacks. Some observers suggested that if Alcock could eventually offer a genuine apology for her public attacks on audiences, and for her blame shifting and for her continued public tirades, that might help her recovery process. However, the entertainment industry sometimes had limited patience for performers who tried to walk back earlier, controversial statements. The reality was that Alcock's professional prospects had been significantly damaged by her experience on Supergirl, and by how she had chosen to respond to the film's failure and to the subsequent criticism and controversy. Whether she would eventually be able to overcome the damage to her reputation remained uncertain. The Supergirl saga's place in entertainment history. As the dust began to settle on the Supergirl disaster and its various aftershocks and controversies, the situation had become emblematic of broader challenges and apparent tensions facing the contemporary entertainment industry around issues of representation, diversity, legacy, and creative vision. The Supergirl saga had touched on nearly every major contemporary entertainment industry issue: creative vision and studio control, casting and representation, legacy and contemporary approaches, accountability and professional responsibility, and the role of social media in apparently amplifying both legitimate criticism and personal attacks. Whether the entertainment industry would apparently emerge from the Supergirl debacle, apparently having learned important lessons, apparently remained to be seen. But what was apparently clear was that the film and its aftermath had apparently sparked important conversations and had apparently created moments of genuine reckoning for the industry about how it apparently worked and about what changes might be necessary to create a healthier and more sustainable entertainment environment going forward. The Supergirl situation had apparently revealed fault lines within the entertainment industry and within broader society about how classic cultural works should be adapted, about who gets to tell stories about beloved characters, and about how the industry could apparently balance respect for legacy with embrace of contemporary values and perspectives. These questions would continue to shape how the entertainment industry approached character adaptation and diverse casting for years to come. Final analysis. The Supergirl saga in retrospect. Looking back on the entire Supergirl saga from the initial casting announcement through Millie Alcock's continued public tirades following the sequel's cancellation, industry observers and entertainment analysts have identified several key lessons and several key turning points that apparently shaped how the situation ultimately unfolded. The first major turning point was Alcock's decision to publicly blame audiences for the film's failure, rather than accepting responsibility or remaining silent. That decision set the tone for how the rest of the saga unfolded, and made Alcock seemingly unable to recover her reputation or her professional standing. The second major turning point, was James Gunn's apparent emotional breakdown and apparent public acknowledgement of his crisis of confidence following the film's failure. Rather than defending his vision, Gunn chose to publicly acknowledge doubt and uncertainty, which had the effect of making his position at the studio increasingly precarious. The third major turning point was the coordinated campaign by legacy DC actors criticizing the film's casting and creative direction. This campaign gave voice to concerns that many audiences and critics had been expressing about the film, and gave those concerns apparent legitimacy and apparent cultural weight. The fourth major turning point was the cancellation of Supergirl 2. Which represented the final validation that the film and its creative direction had been rejected by the studio and by the industry broadly. This cancellation also represented the moment at which Alcock's apparent opportunity for recovery seemed to slip away. Throughout the saga, several key themes emerged repeatedly. The tension between legacy and contemporary approaches to character adaptation, the challenges of diverse casting in classical mythology-based narratives, the role of social media in amplifying both legitimate criticism and personal attacks, the importance of professional accountability and emotional maturity in responding to professional failure, and the broader question of how the entertainment industry could balance respect for legacy with embrace of contemporary values. These themes would continue to shape how the entertainment industry approached character adaptation and diverse casting for years to come. The Supergirl saga had become a watershed moment in contemporary entertainment industry history, and would continue to influence how filmmakers, studios, actors, and critics thought about these important issues. For Millie Alcock specifically, the aftermath of the Supergirl saga represented a significant setback in what had been a promising early career trajectory. Whether she would eventually recover from the damage remained uncertain, but what was clear was that the experience had left a permanent mark on her professional reputation and her standing in the entertainment industry. The Supergirl saga had ultimately become a story not just about one failed film, but about broader industry dynamics. broader cultural tensions, and broader questions about how contemporary entertainment could apparently balance respect for source material and legacy with embrace of contemporary diversity and contemporary values. These questions apparently were not apparently going to apparently be apparently resolved in the near term, and the Supergirl saga apparently would apparently likely apparently continue to apparently be apparently referenced and apparently discussed for years to come as the entertainment industry apparently grappled with these challenging and important issues.